Welcome to Business Class. I'm Steve Ekstrom from Learn Tourism, a nonprofit academy dedicated to advancing the tourism industry through innovative training and sustainable practices. Our mission? To empower travel professionals and communities with the knowledge they need to create meaningful, authentic, and sustainable tourism experiences. Ready to join us on this journey? Visit learntourism.org and start making a difference today.
Welcome to Business Class, the podcast that goes beyond attractions and accommodations to explore the people, principles, and passion that shape the tourism industry. Today, we sit down with David Gilbert, the longtime leader behind both Destination Cleveland and the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission. From civic innovation to destination storytelling, David shares how his deep love for his hometown and a commitment to authentic leadership have shaped his decades-long career, and why he believes DMOs are vital players in economic development. Whether you're a tourism professional, city planner, or curious traveler, this conversation is packed with wisdom you won't want to miss.
My whole career has been involved in civic organizations related to growing Cleveland. And I was involved early on in my career and ultimately running a lakefront development nonprofit organization. The head of this CVB of Cleveland at the time was on our board and asked me to join. This was almost 30 years ago, created a position. And from there, I was asked to leave and start our new sports commission, combining a love of Cleveland, attracting people to Cleveland and sports. Have been doing that since we started it about 25 years ago. And about 10 years in, was asked if I would lead the sports commission to run what's now Destination Cleveland. I loved what I was doing in the sports commission, really didn't want to leave, and was asked if I turned it down, and then was asked a couple months later if I could do both. It's unique in our industry, but I run both as completely separate organizations, separate board, separate staff, separate funding, no crossover staff. They're so complementary. And now there's a Kathy Nelson in Kansas City does the same, running both. But I've been running our DMO for about 14 years now.
What do you love most about your work?
I love that I get to try to make better my community. And it's a community I'm from Cleveland. I'm extraordinarily passionate about it. I love the place. And I feel so fortunate that I get to be in a position to try to make it better. I run these two organizations and they've got amazing staffs, very passionate, talented people. So by no means is it about I get to, but it's, you end up at a certain point in your career, if you're lucky enough that you can feel like you're really making a difference.
Yeah.
I don't come from the hotel background, which many do. I've now been in this industry for 25 years of attracting people. It's an industry that tends to have people move around a lot. And even in the DMO world, there are different career paths of people moving from place to place. I think I'm lucky that it's very personal to me. It doesn't mean that others who are very good at what they do, they don't enjoy it and it's not personal to them, but I think it adds an additional layer of being personally gratifying when it's a place that you're from. That's where my roots are. It's where I grew up. Cleveland in particular, being a place that over the past couple of generations, it's largely past it now, but a place that took a lot of knocks and had some really tough times, going back to things in the late 60s that caused it being a joke, that mother-in-law punchline of jokes of cities in America in the 70s and well into the 80s that also made it extra personal for me.
Yeah. When you think of Cleveland, what is something that you see or feel that you hope visitors would also experience?
It's an incredibly deeply rooted place with an enormous sense of pride. And I think it manifests very much in the people. Interestingly, if you go back now 30 years, you would see it far more self-deprecating. And I think it would manifest in a little bit of a woe is us. I'm from Cleveland, asking visitors, why would you want to come here? It's so much more of a damn right or Cleveland attitude. I think you can go to almost any place and you can find really good attractions. You can find things to do. You can find some good culinary. I do feel like what sets some places apart from others is certain communities just have a lot of soul to it. And I think that's what Cleveland has. It has an incredible vibrancy, but a real soul that you could feel in the people, in the pride, certainly a richness to the history, but the history has also created a good bit of a grittiness to it. And it was one of the wealthiest cities in America for a long time. 100 years ago, 120 years ago, more patents per capita came out of Cleveland than any other place in America. It was the new money place. It was sort of Silicon Valley of the 1880s to 1920s. And it had a little bit of a chip on its shoulder because it was seen by the East Coast as this dirty industry, new money. It was steel making and oil refining and shipbuilding. And what's interesting is it still retains some of that personality. And I think some of that comes out of the hard times. And it was a place that, look, not a lot of people moved to it lost a lot of population in the 70s, 80s, 90s. It's now turned around. But I think it created a generation and a half of people who were either stuck there or really there by choice. I think that's still manifested now in some extremely deep pride, which to me is part of what I love about it. And we get so much of new people, visitors for sure, and new people moving there. They comment that they feel it. We don't look at drawing people in, whether it's meetings, conventions, other things, as a piece of business. It's inviting people into your home and wanting it to look good and feel good when you invite them into your home. And I think that's a good part of what we feel. And I think a part of what tends to set us apart.
What's something that surprises you most about the DMO space, the destination space?
I think the depth, when I first started working in our DMO 30 years ago, I was there 5 years, not there for 10 and back for 15. I think what I've really seen a huge difference of is it was very much early on, and even early in my second tenure running the organization, in the industry, it was all heads in beds, and that's how we were viewed. It's funny, the word heads in bed just is not part of our vernacular. To me, it's an amazing byproduct of what we do. But I think what I'm seeing is more DMOs understanding they are part of the economic development ecosystem. It's not separate from it. I think it minimizes our work when we just talk about the effect we have on hotels. I think for a city like Cleveland, and I'm not saying Cleveland in particular, but cities like Cleveland where perception and change of perception is so critical, and it's a lot of cities. Some cities don't have that. But for cities that do, our work in many ways could be the most important work in economic development of any work, because research shows over and increasingly that perception change or perception of a place, it plays a dramatic role in not just people visiting, but people's willingness to live and work in a place, and talent attraction and business attraction, capital attraction. And DMOs are 100% at the front lines, and quite frankly, they do it right. Experts at perception change. Find in our research that by far the number one way to change the perception of someone about Cleveland is to have them experience it. And visiting is the gateway. There's other ways to experience. They could be short-term residents, like college students in particular, maybe people who are there for an externship type of thing, or they can experience by living there. Expats are now becoming more of a strategy around talent attraction. We attract almost 20 million visits a year for leisure, business, or convention travel. And that's grown from 13 million just 12 years ago. So it's grown dramatically. And many of those, it's their first visit. And we talk a lot about, we have millions of first dates each year. And our job is to convert those into long-term relationships. We don't do that on our own. That's not fully what our mission is. That's where you work with other types of organizations, chambers, your city, your county, state, others that work in the economic development space. But I think more DMOs are waking up to, it means putting it that way, that how critically important their work is. And how we try to describe it to our community leaders is we have a short-term and a long-term benefit. The short-term benefit is what people in the DMO space have always talked about. It's visitor spending. And it's a number. Anybody who visits is worth a number based on what they're there for, how long they stay, what they do. They stay in hotels or friends and family, on and on. They're worth a number. But long term, for the growth of our community, what we do with those people, what we do with their changed perception of Cleveland is critical to our future. And I think we are being recognized as an organization, in many ways as an industry across this country, quite frankly, around the world. We are critically important to the long-term future of our communities and stewards of the places. I've gotten involved in a really neat organization called City Nation Place. And it's a small think tank type of organization. They're based in London and have people from all over the world. They hold a global conference, a US conference, a North American conference, and they're not real big, but it's a really fascinating mix of DMOs, different, I'd say, place-based organizations, economic development organizations, cities, counties, states, nations. And it's an interesting mix of industries and also organizations that are city-based or many nation-based, and was just on a Zoom this morning with a number of folks. And there were some other US DMOs, but it's all looking at bigger, broader issues that are around the development and advancement of communities. It's fascinating because you start to see how DMO work is critically important, but how it also fits really well with what pure economic development organizations do. And it's just, I find that discussion really relevant to the advancement of our organization's work, but I think also to the advancement of how the travel and tourism industry is such a critical component of the future of our cities.
Before we dive back in, a quick word from our sponsor, Learn Tourism, the nonprofit academy, where we're dedicated to transforming the tourism industry with 4 key services: our cutting-edge learning experience platform, which offers robust analytics and seamless updates; our custom course development, which ensures tailored learning solutions; subject matter experts who provide deep insights and valuable knowledge; and of course, our engaging speakers who are here to inspire and educate with impactful presentations. Discover how we can elevate your tourism education at learntourism.org. When the visitor comes and has a great time, everything rises in the city. And Cleveland's been punching above its weight class for quite a while. What advice would you have to other DMOs that are trying to get there?
I think what you have to look at is what you can control and what you can't control. There's a lot of things we can't control are things like the weather. We're 4 or 5 months a year. We're a cold, gray city. Okay. Can't control it. How do you deal with it? Certain facilities we have, some great, some not. Every city has certain tremendous attributes and attractions, some better than many other places, some not as good as other places. You have to deal with all that. What we can control is how we treat the customer. It's not just about if all of a sudden if you have great marketing, you're going to do well. First, you have to understand who you are as a community, what strengths you have. We can't be all things to all people. You have to really get a great brand. A great brand isn't a slogan. A brand is how you feel when you hear the word of the city. How does somebody feel when they hear the word Cleveland? If you do that right, you get the brand right. And the other is, if you get that, you have to live it. We have built an organization over the last dozen or so years related to visitor experience. We have a chief experience officer. Under her is probably a dozen different people. Some run visitor centers and basic things like that. We have a city planner on staff. It's very unique for a DMO, but we also realize that how we look, act, and feel to our customers is critical. We all have great attractions in our communities. And they are thinking about the experience of the visitor in their four walls or on their property line. What they don't think about is what connects the dots. We did some research about a dozen years ago and brought in consultants to look at Cleveland through a visitor lens. And what we found was, in essence, that you have great dots, you do a lousy job connecting the dots. And we took that on as a challenge. We all have to balance how much of our resource goes into meeting, convention, sales and services, and leisure marketing, communications, PR, all those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, we play a significant role in that visitor experience. We have to do it through partnerships. There's not a lot we can pay for. It's easy to say anything is good for the visitor, whether it's safety or good sidewalks, but there are also certain things like lighting and signage that are more geared toward visitors. We need to make sure that we are the eyes and ears of the customer. We need to research what people are saying about their experience in our communities. We can't just think we know it. We know it through the eyes of someone who lives there and takes things for granted. We do a lot of research to say, how do people look at our communities from the outside? Sometimes we may not like it. That's okay. We have to take it, understand it, and bring together different constituencies to figure out how can we affect some change. And I think that I do feel like it is something, I think we're ahead of the curve in that, and it's made a big difference for us.
What's something you're looking to learn this year?
We are looking to learn even more about the importance of perception, how to quantify it, and a much deeper strategy around how we continue to shape the perception of Cleveland locally, regionally, and nationally. And knock on wood, our numbers are really good in the group space, in the leisure space. We feel that fundamental to all that is the continued evolution of the perception of Cleveland. I'd like to be even more of a catalyst to strong partnerships in our community. So little of what we do and what we can affect, we could do just on our own. To have great partnerships, sometimes that means giving up some control and sharing many of those things. And I want to make sure that me personally and our organization continues to be even better at that, because I think for any DMO, there's a ceiling on what you can do if you're just trying to do it with your own organization. What we've really started talking about, what are our very particular capabilities? We can't be all things to all people. We can't do everything everyone asks of us. And how can we bring our best capabilities, what we're charged with doing, to the table to help other community initiatives succeed?
How would you like your staff to describe you?
Think collaborative. I think emotionally intelligent. I'm such a believer, you have to understand people's motivations, whether it's people you're trying to partner with or your own team. What makes people tick? What drives them? What makes them happy? What makes them passionate? How do you pay attention to that? If you're the head of a decent sized DMO, so much of my job is external. That's a critically important part of the job, the external part. But it also is critical to as best as you can, stay in tune to what's making the organization, the people in the organization tick, so you can try to help arm them do the best they can. And I think if you lack that emotional intelligence, it's really hard to do that.
Who is someone you look up to?
Boy, there's a lot. He's gone, but my dad, when he passed a few years back, I could say, I don't think in my life I ever heard anyone say a bad word, ever. And he was someone that people just liked. And I still run into people and he had a small business, sometimes did well, sometimes didn't do well. We never had a ton of money growing up, but it's amazing how many people I still run into say, oh, my dad was an interior designer. That's what he did his whole life. And they say, oh, and this was like people I'll meet in their 80s that I never met. Oh, your dad did something for us 20 years ago, and he was the greatest guy. He was the nicest guy. And you realize as you get a little older, that's what matters. And I've taken that a lot to heart. I really love seeing people who you would think might have a huge ego because they're CEO of some big company or they're in a highly visible media personality. And oftentimes you have personalities that probably have been transformed because they think they need to act a certain way. I love when I meet people who, when you get to know them, have no ego at all, even though you would think they could have an ego the size of a house, and they don't. And I just gravitate toward people like that. I appreciate it and I learn from it.
I have my 13-year-old niece with me on our road trip.
Right? Yeah. Oh,
I'm a
nice.
digital nomad. I have lived out of a van for the last 3.5 years while traveling.
Really?
Yeah,
When
it's-
we're off this podcast, I want to hear a little more on that.
Oh, sure. So my 13-year-old niece is with me right now. We're in
Yeah.
Amish country, Indiana.
Love it. Love
So
it.
we were talking about the importance of humility and being humble. It's a trait that I admire in more and more people. And I admire it more and more as I grow older.
Yeah. I'm the same. It's easy to look back, and as you get older, you appreciate more things. We're both saying the same things, and everybody has different styles. And so, look, some people get where they are with a sledgehammer, and that's great. If that's what they need, my entire life, that kind of success has always rubbed me the wrong way. I'm lucky that's who I am. It's just always who I've been. And it doesn't mean others can't get there in certain ways, but you still have to wake up and look at yourself in the mirror.
And like that person.
100%. 100%. You certainly hope that's the case. I'll tell you, I'm in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm here because John Lugbill, good friend, he's been running the Richmond Sports Back as their sports commission for 32 years, and he's retiring. And I've been running our sports commission 25, and it's almost a subset of the DMO world in many ways. And so there's a few of us who've been in the industry a long time. We flew down here to take him out to dinner to celebrate his retirement because he's an amazing, humble guy. If he were a jerk, we wouldn't be down here celebrating him. These are people who talk about co-opetition. You can be competitors, but at the end of the day, you support each other and you like good people. I love the fact that there's some of us getting together, been in the industry together for 20, 25, 30 years, and all like each other because we don't lead with sledgehammers. And this particular group, Frank Viverito from St. Louis and Linda Logan from Columbus, each have had a lot of success, and they've done it without being jerks. To me, it says a lot about John that we all want to fly in. He didn't ask us to do it. A few of us got together. We did it for somebody else a couple of years back, said, we just want to celebrate you and what you've accomplished and the way you've done it for your community.
If you were to have a parting thought or piece of advice, what would it be?
I think for any DMO, I think I always hear about DMOs and EDOs working together, DMOs and economic development organizations. And I really more and more cringe at that. And I make the correction. DMOs are economic development organizations. We are a critical piece of the economic development infrastructure in our communities, and we need to be acting that way if we want our relevance to remain.
Fantastic. Anything I didn't ask that you wish I did?
I don't think so. I appreciate your asking what I think are great questions. I love things like this where you hear people talking more about much bigger and, quite frankly, more important things.
Yeah. And you said it pretty well. You'll find restaurants everywhere you go. You'll find activities and attractions everywhere you go. But it's the people that we gravitate toward. It's the people that you remember. Even if it's the waiter at the restaurant or the front desk clerk at the hotel, that's what makes a difference.
Yeah.
And that's the empathy behind the education.
Yes.
Well,
Love how you put that.
Yeah. You have to meet people where they're at and invite them and inspire them to join you on the journey.
So you've been on the road 3.5 years? That's awesome. So it started during COVID, I presume?
It did. So I had a nice big house in Fort Lauderdale. And one day I looked around and I'm like, it's me and a dog. This 2,500 square foot house. It's just a pain in the butt to take care of. So why not be that person, be that uncle that goes and lives on an island for a year or travels Europe for a year? Before I was able to take off, I listed the house. I asked my next door neighbor who had bought a brand new RV a month before COVID struck. and it had been sitting in his driveway. He never spent a night in it. I said, "Hey, Brad, can I rent your RV for 3 months? Go visit some of the places that I've heard of, some of the friends that I've made from working in this industry for 25 years. He said, "I'll give it to you for what I have left on the loan." 3.5 years later, I've done 3 winters in Mexico. I've crossed Canada. I've done the national parks of the West. I've stayed at car museums, llama ranches. I've been near gored by a bison. I've had authentic Cajun dinners with somebody out in their crawfish pond in Louisiana. Or spent time with the Navajo and the Pueblo on the reservations. Touched whales in the wild. I've done all of this crazy stuff. And then I get to have my niece join me for several weeks every summer. We have part of that experience together.
Oh, that's
And then I
great.
drop her off at the airport, head over to the Marriott.
And you'll end up in Chicago. I love it.
Exactly.
Fantastic. I love travel. I've always had a little bit of wanderlust, and we do a lot of travel. At some point, we'll do more road trips, but I'm always fascinated by it and excited when I hear people who do it.
It was about the same time that we were starting this when I was realizing that, yes, I love to travel and I love food and culture and art and music and history and geology and all this stuff. But what I loved most was the fact that I got to learn. When we hire people, the question is, what are you looking to learn? What are you passionate about learning? And are you a good person? You can answer those two questions. Well, everything else can be taught.
I'll look forward to following you more and appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful dinner.
I'm looking forward to it, and it's always good to be with good people.
Thanks for tuning in to Business Class. This episode was brought to you by Learn Tourism, the nonprofit academy where we advance the tourism industry with cutting-edge training and sustainable practices. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to visit learntourism.org to learn more about our programs and how you can get involved. Until next time, stay curious, continue learning and making a difference through tourism.